Teachavision is brought to you by
Hi, this is Maureen from Insightable Puzzles. Puzzles designed with the blind in mind. Raised lines, shapes, textures, and sometimes braille can be used as clues to piece together a tactile jigsaw puzzle, born of your patience and persistence. Whether you're a new or a seasoned puzzler, there is a puzzle that's just right for you. Explore my website, insightablepuzzles.com. That's INSIGHT able, and discover the fun of completing a puzzle by touch alone.
The opinions expressed on Teachavision are solely those of the guests and hosts and do not represent other companies or third parties. Thank you for listening.
Hello and welcome to Teachavision, a podcast by Screenless Allies, where everyone has a different vision of learning. And now, here's your host, Jose Briceño.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time you're listening to this episode. Welcome to Teachavision number 5050. We made it to half a century. Honestly, I didn't think we'd make it here, but we did. 4 years later, we're at episode number 50. We've been through quite a bit, but here we are. Yes, Teachavision turned 4 on January 31st, which was also my birthday. And the less we talk about how old I turned, the better. And we were actually going to be here last week, but we wanted to make sure that people that were going to listen to a bunch of millionaires fighting over a tiny oval-shaped ball could listen to that. So here we are. We're now back with the second and final part of the review that I did regarding the Active Braille by Help Tech, which is distributed here in the United States by Dream Vision Group. Thank you again to Mr. Damian Pickering for allowing me to review this unit. And on this review, we're going to tackle the options available, also play some music, and play some games. How will I do? Well, stay tuned to find out right here on Teachavision by Screenless Allies. Let's go ahead and hit the space bar to kind of start moving the menu here. And the first option is File. This is your editor. You can do very basic text documents here. So there's no Microsoft Word. There's no PDF. This is a very basic notepad. You do have to type in computer braille. So if you are familiar with that, then you do have to type on that. So basically, to capitalize something, you would press backspace with the letter. So you can't type it in contracted or uncontracted braille. You have to use computer braille. You can import it into braille transcribing software. You can save it as a BRL file or BRF file, and you can open it in the editor as well. You can copy, paste, save files like you normally would. When you hit enter on file, you have new file. And I'm using the joystick, by the way, to select options and to move through the menus. So you have new file, previous file, new directory. And then it starts giving you the list of files on your Active Braille. Remember, this is on your micro SD card. We're going to go ahead and hit the triple action key left on the select function. So on that little round circle that's kind of indented in the middle, you hit that and we're back to file. All right, let's go down. Calculator. This is your basic calculator. You know, you're doing the plus, minus, multiply, divide. It does do all that. And remember, you have to use computer braille for that as well. Drop numbers. 3 6 for minus, 3 4 and 6 is plus, and so on and so forth. All right, the next one is scheduler. The nice thing about this is when you're setting a schedule. So like, let's just pretend I'm going to press enter on that, and I'm going to down arrow until I find new entry. I'm going to press enter on new entry. When you hit enter on here, it's going to give you a single line of text. So for example, right now I have the date and there's a blinking cursor underneath the date. This basically means I can type the date right here, right now in computer braille, and it will save that. When I'm done, I can move to the right on that same line and there's a time. Once you find the time, you hit a cursor button underneath the time of the braille display and type in the time you're looking for. What time do you want the alarm to go off? To the right of that, you'll find CW, calendar week. You don't need to mess with that because that's already set for you. And then to the right of that, you can do once, twice, weekly. It's really nice to have one thing in one line And when you're done editing everything, you can just push enter and it closes you out. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. And we're going to go back with the triple action left key until I find scheduler. Here we go, scheduler. All right, next one, clock. Well, this is the standard clock. This is where you can set the date and time. And setting the date and time is the exact same way that you did with the scheduler. So on that same line, you just hit your cursor button above the time or the date, and then you can type in a new one and then press enter when you're done. So it is really nice having those in one line instead of having to press, space with 4 or 5 or a tab or whatever. They tried to make it on one single line. And honestly, I've been told that a sighted person on the screen, they see that in the exact same way. They just click on their mouse and their cursor will jump to another part of the screen where you can type. So it's really nice of Help Tech trying to emulate, even if it's simple and even if it's a little different, trying to emulate this on the Braille display. So well done, guys. Well done. All right. So that's your clock. Next one is Music Braille. Now it's spelled M-U-S-I-K, Braille. And yes, if you're thinking what I'm thinking, yes, this is the Braille music part. You can create Braille music. Now, before you get all excited and start importing files from Lime or any of those, stop. You can't do that. Sorry. You have to make them on the device, or if someone else has a Braille display like this, because there's another Braille display that can do that, which would be the Actolino. And you can put them on this device and play them back. So let's actually show you what you can do with this. So I'm going to press enter on Music Braille, and you still have the options of new file, new directory, your folders. Your folders are listed underneath all this. And I'm going to find one that I created called Twinkle. Now, I'm sure you're thinking Twinkle. Yes, I made Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on this device. So I'm going to press enter on this. And now it gives you the option to edit, cut, copy, delete, rename, properties. You got the bottom, so I'm going to go to the top to edit. So I'm going to press enter on edit. And now I see Braille music on the Braille display. So again, if you're familiar with your Braille music code, you're able to read the device. Now, remember how I told you about ATC, Active Tactile Control? Well, this is one of the use cases that Help Tech has really thought into. When you're reading Braille music, and this is very beneficial for, let's say, students that are going into band or choir and need some basic pieces, because obviously there's like 4 parts. There's an alto, there's a soprano, there's bass and tenor and whatever. You can read each note and you know what it is. So for example, I'm going to put my finger on the first note on the cells here. And I'm just holding it down here so you can hear what it is. There you go. So that's a C. It's a quarter note C. Yes, I remember some of my music. So I'm going to just find another random note. There's a G. Okay. There's that right there is an E, and there's a D. So you can actually read through and do it that way. If you were to read it with the display right now, how I have it, yeah, that. So you can, that might not make any sense to you. So if you want to be able to read, you can just read with one finger and you can listen to each note. You can also hear the song. So let's say I want to just listen to the song and see how it goes. I'm going to press space with P, a P chord, for play. Now, as the song is going, on the Braille display, there's a cursor that moves. Rest. Rest. So as the notes are playing, this cursor is on each note. Oh, and it scrolls to the next line. And that ends that song. So that is really nice to be able to do. Now, I'm sure you're asking yourself, well, doesn't this come with a piano? Yes. You can change the instrument on this device by pressing space with I. And it says organ. And I can use the panning buttons on the left and right sides of the display. There's a saxophone, a xylophone, a piano, a steel drum, a violin, a guitar, and then we're back to organ. So I could choose one of these. Let's go with the piano. And I'm going to hit the select key, and now I can... Okay, let's make a new file. I want to make the intro to my song, to the theme song, at least the first couple of notes. Now, I went ahead and hit new file, and now I have an empty cursor and just a blank display. Now, remember, you have to know how to type in the notes in music notation. So I know that the first 3 notes, and I'm going to do it in the key of C because, as someone said before, I'm a lazy pianist. So I want to put everything on C. So we already know what the first couple of notes are. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do it in 8th notes because why not? So I'm going to hit 1, 2, 4 for the E note. And then C. And then... And then... All right. So now I can go to the top and hit play. There we go. That is the Teachavision theme song. You can make your own music in here. And of course, it supports quarter notes, half notes, whatever you're looking for. You can also even do like 16th notes and even smaller note values if you really were creative. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. Nope, I don't want to save this. And that is Music Braille. It's really nice to have something basic. And again, this is a good practice for your students. It really is. If you have a student in school that you're working with on Braille music, you can have them open up a blank document in this Music Braille app and have them make a song to practice their notes. Remember, it doesn't do like the left hand and right hand stuff, but it does the basics. So keep that in mind. And of course, remember, you cannot import anything from other companies.
Looking for some basic tips on how to use both assistive and mainstream technology in general? Check out the Teachability section on our website.
The next option is player. Now, this is where the speakers and microphone come in. The speakers are on the bottom left and right. They're right below the Braille display where the space bars would be, and the case covers these as well. But if you connect an iPhone, you can connect an iPhone apart from connecting it to a Braille display as, well, a Braille display. And you would do that under the settings, VoiceOver, Braille, like you used to do it with other Braille displays. It would have been nice to be able to have that hid support. That being said, you can connect your active Braille to your phone with kind of 2 connections if you want to be technical because you have the Braille display. But you can also connect it as a speaker. Games. Now, the games are pretty cool, actually. So we're going to press enter on this. And there's Braille Hunt and Hangman. We're going to play each of these. Now, this is cool, especially for students that are learning Braille. So the Braille Hunt option is really nice for that. So I'm going to play a round of this. Now, Braille Hunt, again, the ATC functionality comes in here. There's no keyboard command. There's nothing. All you use is your hands on the Braille display when you're reading, and the sensors on the display will make this game playable. So when I press enter, there's going to be a full cell followed by a character to the right of it that I have to find on the Braille display because there's a bunch of other full cells with characters next to those. And I have to find and I have to match. Think of it as a match game. I have to match the character on the very left-hand side with one of them that is the same on the Braille display. So I'm going to try and describe it, but you're going to know what I'm doing when I start reading. So I'm going to press enter on Braille Hunt, and it wants me to find a .5. All right. So now that I know what that is, I have a few seconds to explain this real quick. So I'm going to start reading, and I'm going to find... There we go. So I got that one correct. And remember, I'm just reading on the Braille display. That's all I'm looking for. All right. They want me to find an L. So I'm going to find the letter L. There it is. That's correct. All right. Here is it wants me to find an A. So I'm going to look for an A in these. All right. I'm going to get one wrong just so you can hear what it does. It wants me to find dots 3, 6. Okay. So I'm going to find, I'm just going to be funny. There you go. If you get many of these wrong, and then you lose the game. But I'm going to keep going. Okay, wants me to find the letter V, so I'm going to find V. I'm reading. There we go. Now, notice that you have to wait 3 beeps. So once you find the character, you can hold your finger down on there until the beeps are done. All right, it was found an E. Okay, so... here at the very end. Okay. All right. Now it's going to find an ST symbol. So we're going to see if we can't. There we go. All right. Now it's going to find a 456. So I'm going to find a 456. All right. Let's see. Oh, right here. Okay. This is going to be an IN symbol. So a 35. So let's see if we can find something like this. And remember, each of these is surrounded by a full cell. So that's really nice for you to orient. Okay. Now let's find an E again, so I'm going to find an E. There we go. An A. Okay. Let's see if we can find it. Oh. There it is. And I won the game. See, and it's really nice because this is really a good game for kids to test out their Braille skills, especially if you're starting to teach them how to do this. Since we're talking about Braille monitoring and stuff like that, when you have the software installed, because there is a start stick in the box, as I mentioned at the beginning. In the start stick, there is a program called HTCOM. And in there, you actually can generate reports on this kind of stuff. Because of the Braille technology that's in this device, you actually can track the progress of how the kid is doing with Braille. If they're struggling with characters, then it actually tells you if the finger stayed too long on a character or things like that. You can actually configure to that. But because, again, this is a review, we're not going to dive deep into that. The next game, since we already closed out of Braille Hunt, is Hangman. Now, of course, you know the classic game of Hangman. You guess letters and see if you can form a word. All right, I'm going to press enter on Hangman, and it shows me a blank cell. There's 6 characters, which just represent a blank space. There are 6 letters in this word. Now, I have about 7 guesses before I get it wrong. Now, when I play Hangman, I like to go through the vowels first. So is there an A in the word? Now, remember, you type this in Braille on the keyboard. So at this point, you do need a keyboard. And is there an A? No, there's not. Okay, and there's a guess that I threw out the window. Okay, is there an E? Okay, there's an E. So there's blank E, blank, 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 blank. Okay, I see. Okay, is there an I? Okay, there's an I. Blank E, blank, blank, I, blank, blank. Okay, is there an O? No, there's not an O. How about a U? Okay, so there's no U's. This might be wrong. We're about to see. Okay, let's see here. All right, is there a B? No, there's not. Oh, jeez. Is there a C? Oh, there's no C. There's no other C. Oh, geez. Okay. Is there a D? Okay, I'm gonna probably fill it. Okay. How about a P? Sorry, you lost this round. The mystery word was setting. Oh, okay. But it does get addictive. The next option is PC mode, and I'm not going to demonstrate this, but needless to say, you can have 3 Bluetooth devices and a USB connection. You can connect it, of course, to NVDA, to JAWS, to all the screen readers that you came to know and love. You don't need any other additional software like you used to back in the old days. You can actually connect this to the computer as normal, start the screen reader, and a lot of the newer screen readers will recognize it. All right, the next option is Braille sets, which is a little bit more complex because you can actually change the Braille set or the Braille table, if you will. So if you really had the time to do it, you could, in theory, sit there and make a whole new table. If you wanted to make a contracted Braille table, you could, if you really were bored enough. So, but remember, this is for the more techie. The next one is info, which just gives you information about the firmware version and things like that you saw in the main menu. And then you have options. And this is where you can change things like your battery saver. You can also highlight hotkeys. Now, the cool thing about the hotkey commands on the Braille display, so you know how normally you can hit O for the options. Well, the cool thing about this display is instead of saying options O to the right of it, it actually will put the letter of the shortcut in a parentheses. So it would say parentheses O, parentheses PTIONS. So it is nice to have that little shortcut. And that's it. That is the Active Braille. It is a very, very simple device. This is where my review comes in. But before we do that, I'm going to show you what it sounds like when you turn off the Active Braille. So I'm just going to hit the power button. And it says bye-bye on the Braille display. It's a little ellipsis. It's kind of cool that it does that. I like that human approach. All right. Now that I kind of went over just some basics, because honestly, if you dive into things like the editor or the Braille music, there's definitely a lot more, and you can read the manual. The only downside of the manual is that there are some stuff that is still out of date. For example, to turn up and down the volume, it says to hit the space bar with the triple action keys, but that does not work. You have to hit space with the joystick up and down. So it would be cool if the manual was updated, especially for people that are starting to use these devices in schools and such, and that's not the right command. So it might be a good idea to start looking over the manual, having someone review it, and updating it accordingly. This is where we get to the pros and cons of the Active Braille. So the pros is you really have a fully functional Braille display. It has ATC technology, of course. You have 40 cells. The Braille is really nice under the finger, and you can change the firmness, which is nice as well. And this is all under the options menu. And of course, you can have the basic tools that you need, like a scheduler and a calculator. The cons, you don't have a library. You don't have any Wi-Fi like you would be used to with his other Braille displays. You don't have any voices, so it does not talk. But I feel like it makes up for it, honestly. Now, that being said, we're going to go into the critique. I'm going to give this unit a 5 out of 5. You're asking yourself, well, Jose, you give 5 out of 5s to a lot of things. Yes. But honestly, this unit is definitely, at least to me, a 5 out of 5. It has really what Braille displays should be having. See, these Braille displays that are made by other companies nowadays, they're trying to make them all fancy. They're trying to make them talk. They're trying to have Wi-Fi, having to read books on them, having to Dropbox, I'm sure, at some point in the future. And honestly, that is not where we're going. I think that these Braille display manufacturers should focus on having Braille support for the screen readers. And HelpTech has given us a balance of, okay, we're going to give you some basic tools like an editor, but it won't open anything fancy. It's just a regular notepad for Windows kind of editor, and you can just save them. That's pretty much it. So that's really nice. There's no talking. It doesn't talk. But that's fine. Like I said, you can connect this device to the iPhone, and once you connect it with the Braille display, with a Braille connection, you can then go back in and connect it as a speaker. So it is nice to have that kind of ability on this display. Of course, there's also the Braille sensors. The Braille sensors are really nice because, again, if a teacher wants to monitor a student's progress, they can run reports. The program on Windows will make it do this. And it's really nice to have that feature because then teachers know what to work with students on for the next lesson. And of course, there's a game that they can play to be able to master those Braille skills and keep them sharp. So really, this is a Braille display that I honestly think is a little underrated, and I'm saying that in a good way. I feel like this display from HelpTech and others should come more to the United States because they are popular in Germany, which is where they were made. But I think it's time for a new player in the technology industry to come into the United States because really, these displays have more of a balance than others. And I'm sorry to say that. And again, thank you to Damien from Dream Vision for trusting me and for allowing me to review their products. Thank you again for listening to this review as well. And we will see you on the next one right here on Teachavision by Screenless Allies.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Teachavision. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to check out previous shows, which are equally informative and fun as this one. Make sure to also check out our website at screenlessallies.com. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/ScreenlessAlliesOfficial. Do you have any suggestions or comments? Why not email us, info@screenlessallies.com. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.